Welcome. So Mikko Rantanen was just traded to the Carolina Hurricanes, which is absolutely insane. Huge blockbuster, one of the biggest trades we've had in like years. So it's Rantanen and Taylor Hall from Chicago going to Carolina. Chicago gets a third-round pick for retaining half of Rantanen's salary, and then Marty Necas and Jack Drury, as well as a second and fourth-round pick, go to Colorado. Absolutely insane, kind of came out of nowhere. My thoughts on the deal: I think Carolina wins this trade as of right now. Obviously, with the contract situations, it can be very different because Mikko Rantanen could just leave in free agency this summer. But if he does end up signing for a decent cap hit, like 13 to 14 mil, I think this is a slam dunk for Carolina. They obviously get the best player in the trade. If they can get this deal done, that is huge for them, and they get like a legit superstar, which they've been lacking for quite a while now. So they really need it. I like this move for them. No issues there. What they gave up, it's pretty. A second, third, fourth round pick, and Marty Necas, who's like a solid player, but he's like a solid second line player, and then Jack Drury, who's like a bottom sixer for sure, but you're getting like a legit franchise superstar. Huge for Carolina. I'm proud of them for this move. They went out and they made a huge splash onto Colorado's side of this deal. Obviously, they weren't going to get like a absolute king's ransom for Rantanen, considering that Rantanen is a free agent this summer, so that had to do a lot with it. But realistically, if I was Colorado, I would have rather ponied up the dough, gave him 14 million, rather than be like, well, no, we're not going to give you, we want you to have 12.5, so we're not going to give you 13.5. If it's something like that, like you're really going to nickel and dime him for $1 million when the cap is going up so much, like you're letting an absolute star, a homegrown stud that you have groomed to be a superstar for the last 10 years, you're going to let him go like that and get pieces that are nowhere near equal in value because of maybe $1 million difference in contract negotiation. And what is $1 million difference? That's like the difference between a solid number 7 defenseman and a low-end third pair defenseman. Like, it's just, the difference there is so minuscule. If it comes out, like if Rantanen ends up signing like a $15-16 million deal, then I can understand it from Colorado that it's like, okay, we're overpaying for you, so we're not going to keep you around. We're just going to trade you. That would be fair. But if Rantanen's deal with Carolina or whoever comes in at like 13 to 14 million, then I think they're insane for not signing that. Like, you got to pay the man. He's a top 10 player in this league, in my opinion. And sometimes that's what you got to pay for star players like this. So I really, at this point, I don't love the return on Colorado's end. Like, sure, they get a bottom 6 center in Drury, which is always great to have center depth in your lineup. That's awesome. But what's his ceiling? Like a 30, 40-point player? Okay. He's 24 years old, but really he doesn't move the needle much. The big piece that they get in return is Marty Necas, who's a solid player. He's on pace for 90 points right now, but that's because he had a heater of a start of the season. I think he's more of like a 60 to 70-point player, maybe 75-point player, and realistically that's what he is. And you gave up a guy who can easily score 50 goals in Rantanen, who easily can grab 100 points for you, who had great chemistry with your best player in Nathan MacKinnon, and sounds like McKinnon and Makar both loved Rantanen. So I wonder what the locker room is going to be like now that you have to look those guys in the eye and say, hey, look, we traded the third part of this whole organization, basically. Like, those are the big three of that organization. One of them's gone. It's unreal. It's like the Oilers trading Draisaitl. Realistically, that's kind of what Rantanen is to that franchise. And the pieces you get in return, I don't know if it's equal value. Necas is at $6.5 million for his contract for the rest of this season and next year. Then he's going to need a new deal. Who knows what that's going to look like? They might have to pay him a lot too. So yeah, it's interesting. You get Necas, Drury, a second and fourth round pick. So that second and fourth round pick, you can flip that to maybe acquire another player to build your team up. But either way, I see the Colorado Avalanche a lot weaker right now than they were a few hours ago, and I see the Hurricanes as heck of a lot stronger. Of course, Carolina also got Taylor Hall as part of this deal, so that's another little throw-in depth winger, and he can still play. He's not an everyday top sixer, but he can still play the game, which is good for Carolina. I mean, you always want depth. They're gearing up for a long playoff run. They got to go through New Jersey and or Washington, so it's going to be a tough one. But they're putting themselves in a good position to do it, and I say go for it at this point. Make another trade, get another player if you can. So yeah, I think like this is an A- right now for Carolina. If they can get Rantanen signed at a decent extension, it can genuinely become an A or A plus. And this is it's hard to say. Right now, I will give this like a B- for Colorado. We'll see what Natchez' extension looks like after, as well as Rantanen's, to see if they could have paid up. I'll give it a B- right now. It could go up or down for sure. And then Chicago, I mean, they were just happy to be there. They got a 3rd round pick out of the deal to retain some money, and they gave up Hall, so they were just kind of there. But yeah, so crazy trade. Good primer for the deadline. That's about a month away. So yeah.